Hello, Becky with Best Behavior. I just wanted to take some time to talk to you about puppy biting, also termed puppy mouthing. One of the most common issues in my puppy preschool classes that comes up is puppies biting. How do I make it stop? How do I teach the puppy not to bite? So I'm going to go through a couple of things today. I'm going to go through some management options and also 3 training behaviors that will help progress and teach your puppy that biting is not something that we do with humans. It's not a human game. So I've just got Jack here. You can sometimes see him sniffing around for the things that I have. Anyways, let's move forward. So first things, puppy biting is normal. They don't have fingers and they're new to the world, so they are using their mouth to discover. So you will find that puppy has, a tendency to touch things with their mouth. And then of course, if those things are exciting, then sometimes we get a little bit more biting or mouthing. So after we recognize that puppy biting is normal, we want to then try to determine why our puppy is biting. And there's generally sort of 2 categories. One is your puppy wants to engage with you. It's curious, wants you to play, or is just discovering. And then, so we've got your puppy is wanting to engage, and then the other is your puppy is starting to get tired and needs some help to settle. So chewing is a form of way that dogs settle. So sometimes puppies will start chewing when they're trying to settle down. That could be chewing on you. It also could be chewing your important furniture or other items. So we're going to first look at puppy trying to settle. So if your puppy has been awake for over an hour or even 30 minutes when they're sort of 8 to 12 weeks old, then generally they've had some stimulation. They might have had a little something to eat. Maybe they've had a play. Maybe they've had a sniff around, and they're starting to need to settle down. So if your puppy's sort of been awake for that 30 minutes to an hour, even, up to a couple hours, then it's likely that they're biting, mouthing, chewing because they need to settle. So if your puppy is just trying to lay down somewhere and they're chewing on the leg of the coffee table or something like that, that's when you want to provide them with something that's acceptable to chew. So one of those could be just one of their stuffed toys that they have taken a liking to. So just if they're not chewing on that, try to go and replace it with what they can chew on. I recommend a goat's horn, which you can get at the pet store. This is made of keratin. It's like fingernail material, which softens, and they can chew on that. This isn't something they can eat in one go. So just having a couple of these laying around are better for the heavy chewers. If your puppy is chewing on wood, like your furniture or your baseboards, then even sometimes your other parts of your furniture, this is a really great replacement and quite engaging because it's natural. And then, a soft, durable chew might look like just one of their toys. Okay, so this has got some little dental bits in it here, and it's pretty thick fabric. So just replacing with something that they can chew on. If you have like a dental ring or a dental type of chewer, sometimes puppies will chew on these. If they're not really taking to it, you can actually smear a little bit of peanut butter or cream cheese in the spikes, and that might help them to engage with it a little bit more. I don't find these as popular as, say, your even a stuffed toy that they like, or your goat's horn. And another option is to make something out of fabric that you have from around your house. So this is just old t-shirts. Now sometimes if you make something out of fabric or material that you've been sleeping on or wearing, like old sheets or clothing, then it has a more natural smell to it, and puppies tend to engage with that. So if you don't have a really tough chewer, you could consider making one of these plaited tugs, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So the other option is to knot socks, old socks, into a big string of old knotted socks. Those can actually be frozen, and then you can give to your puppy to chew. I recommend to supervise anything that's made with materials, just because sometimes they will start ripping and getting little bits off. So you are going to want to think about just replacing with something that's more suitable for your puppy to chew. And the additional thing you can do, say, to coffee table legs, is to have, like, you can put a little bit of Vicks Vapor Rub or other type of deterrent on the actual piece of wood, and you can buy these at the pet store. I've also cut lemons and wired those up around the legs of things that I don't want puppy to chew. Of course, you just want to watch for staining. So we're going to recognize when our puppy is a little bit tired and that they need to chew to settle down. If your puppy does struggle to settle down, so maybe you've put them on, they've kind of gone to their bed, or they're laying down trying to chew something and you've replaced it and it didn't really work, sometimes your puppy needs some more assistance in settling. Okay, so if your puppy needs a little help settling, then you can consider incorporating the Kong into part of your daily routine. And I would recommend to use the Kong when you're during those kind of really active times where you're trying to settle puppies. So not when they're supposed to be awake, but kind of when they're supposed to be settling and they're too amped up, too emotionally aroused to put themselves into a settle. So you can buy a couple of these, or you can keep refilling the one you want, the one you own. And I usually mix regular dry biscuits with a little bit of wet food. So that could be wet puppy food. It could be a little tiny bit of barbecue chicken. There's all sorts of recipes online. Don't make it too complicated. I do have some more information, some of my other resources. But basically, have a couple Kongs. If your puppy learns to be able to excavate the Kong when it's room temperature, then you can start to freeze your Kong. So basically, puppy's been up, it's the afternoon, it's the evening, puppy's been doing its thing, then it starts to get a little bit more bitey, trying to, tug on your pant leg, and you know that puppy's due for a settle. Pop them on their bed, give them a Kong, and it'll help release some of those settling chemicals in their brain. You can use secured spaces like a puppy playpen, a crate, the backyard, which I have other resources on, but sometimes you do have to separate puppy to help them settle down as well. So think about that to reduce some of that time where puppy is becoming overly aroused and therefore biting you. Okay, so that's some of our management, recognizing when puppy needs to go to bed and giving them something suitable to chew on to help them calm down. Okay, and then we have the puppy play, where your puppy's trying to engage with you or engage with something. They're active, they should be awake, and they need some assistance in learning that biting is not something that dogs do with humans. So I'm going to talk to you about some ways to work through that. The first strategy, especially if you're playing with your puppy with a toy, is to, instead of playing with a toy that's small, that you might be, throwing for your puppy, or you're playing a little tug and they're just kind of forgetting the toy and then biting you, I really recommend making a tuggy. So a tuggy can be longer than this. This is, I don't know, maybe 60 centimeters. I'd make it a meter if your puppy has a habit of playing and then latching onto you. You can match it to the size of your puppy, so this is a little smaller one. And tug is a fantastic way to teach stopping and starting a game, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But it's really just a good replacement item. So make a lot of these. You can make them for cheap with your old clothing and just have them hanging around. If your puppy tends to chase you down the hallway and nip your heels, hang some on the doorways so you can really, as soon as your puppy starts biting you, replace their mouth, replace them with the tuggy and engage in a game that is something that they can bite and tug on. Okay, so that's one strategy. Replace with an item. If you don't have a tuggy handy, just grab the nearest toy. Try to get your puppy redirected onto that item. Then we have some training behaviors that we can teach our puppy. Number one, that the hands aren't a biting thing. Hands are used for a human to give signals and are used as a communication tool rather than just something to bite. So we have a couple, I'm going to show you a behavior so you can start to teach a different association to your hands, okay? So that is going to be touch, and there's different ways that you can use touch, but we're going to use it pretty much just so that our hand associates something different other than biting. I will recommend for children just to use a flat hand, but if you want to get a bit more specific, you can use a 2-finger touch target, because if you watch my other videos, that's where we progress with that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you touch with Jack, and I'm going to show it to you with a flat hand just to begin with, and then I'll show you with 2-finger targets. So this is where you can decide what works a little better for you. Okay, and honestly, it really doesn't matter what you do as long as your puppy touches your hand rather than bites your hand. Okay, so I've got Jack here. I am going to just show you how we teach touch. So we don't teach touch when our puppy is biting. We teach touch at a time where they're not biting. Okay, so I'm just going to call Jack over to me. Jack, come. Yes. Okay, now you are going to either need the word yes or a clicker. Okay, if you've been using the clicker, you'll be clicking, and if you aren't using a clicker, I want you to use the word yes. So you're going to present your flat hand in front of your puppy's nose. Yes. And when your puppy touches it, you're going to give it a treat, okay? So, and we're going to add our marker word yes. So once again, you are going to present your hand, say yes when your puppy touches your hand, and then give a treat. I have the treat behind my back, so I'm going to, just stand so you can see with Jack here, I'm going to put my hand out, yes, and then treat. Okay, so there's lots of different words we can add over time, but right now we're just focusing on presenting our hand, yes, and then giving the treat. Now puppies, because they're little, they don't know very much, they can sometimes kind of like just run into your hand. That's fine, as long as their nose touches your hand, yes, and treat, okay? And then it's also really helpful to practice this from a different angle. So we've got touch, yes, okay? And that's because a lot of times puppy will be running up behind you to try to get your pant leg or nip your heel. And so it's good to start getting that target hand in front of you. Jack's trying to touch it. So you can meet them there before they get to your pant leg. So I'm just going to demonstrate also the touch on the side again. Touch, yes. And when you present your touch target, you really need to present it at the level of your dog's nose. Touch, yes. So if you have a puppy, you are going to be, yes, very low, okay? So you're really going to have to get down there. And because we also want to reduce some of the jumping as well. So just keep in mind when you're teaching touch to make sure you say yes and give a treat when your puppy touches your hand, and change the position just a little bit so that you're not always just standing still presenting your hand. You're actually changing the angle and starting to anticipate when your puppy would bite, and so you can kind of interrupt it. So an example would be, I've come into the room, okay, puppies tend to jump, but some puppies come and they get all excited, so they start biting. Okay, so before your puppy even starts biting, you're going to walk in and you're just going to put your hand to the side and say, touch is our cue for it. Touch, yes. Okay, can you stand up? Good boy. So we're going to anticipate that our puppy might bite in this situation. So if your puppy's a bit of a biter, then you're going to start knowing when they're going to bite you. Okay, similarly, if I'm walking out to the clothesline, I am going to have my treats ready and I'm going to say touch. Yes. Okay, touch is our cue, or just putting our hand target out. Yes. All the way to the clothesline. I'm going to do it, if I have to do it 5, 10, 15 steps, touches, that's fine. Okay, so to help this be more successful when you're doing live action, you really need to have the food with you, which means you need to have it in your pocket, ready to go, something that you can capture the moment, because guaranteed the moment, if you teach it, but then when you have it, when you need it, you don't have the treats, and the dogs do need that reinforcement in the beginning. Otherwise, they just do it during training time and they don't start to put it into practice live action. Okay, if you have kids and your kids, aren't going to have treats on them, or it's all too much because puppy's jumping on them to get the treat, just tell your child to put their hand out flat, and when the puppy touches it, you can say yes and throw a treat that direction, or throw a few treats if you need to. Okay, in my puppy's lessons, I talk more about treats. That could be their regular food. I'll just show you what I've got here today. I've got, it's called Ziwi Peak. It's just a little square, high value food that has a really nice smell to it. So that is a good, sometimes getting that smell helps puppies to focus a little better as well. But just use whatever you want to for training treats at this time. Their food, other store-bought treats, just try to make it something healthy. So Ziwi Peak is a good option. Okay, so we're rehearsing touch so that we can use it live action, okay? Now, progressing from that is teaching our puppy to do something different when they're starting to bite. So this really needs to happen really early on, before they're past the point of no return. So it's maybe like the first little mouth, as soon as they put their mouth on you, okay? Now, the behavior that I like to use, especially because this is often what people teach their puppies straight away, is the simple sit, okay? So if my puppy is mouthing me from wherever I am, I'm gonna ask them to sit, and then yes, and give a treat, which means I have to have the treats with me. I have to have them either in my pocket, or I have to anticipate that's going to happen. So I recommend to just carry food around in your pocket so you're ready to go. Just dry biscuits is fine. Okay, so we're going to interrupt our puppy and replace with a more acceptable behavior. So rather than them just mouthing, we're actually going to tell them to sit, which gets them into thinking mode. Now after the sit, you have to sort of do something, because your puppy's probably a little bit emotionally aroused and will likely go back to mouthing you. So from that sit, you need to do something else. So the sit could be followed by 10 food bits. So you say sit, sit, and then you actually hand feed out food bits one after the other, okay? For 10 food bits, because that actually gets them breathing as they smell the food, calms them down, keeps them in thinking mode. After you give out all 10, you sort of do it at a little bit of a slow pace, you're going to say finish, okay? Which means you don't have any more. Hopefully by then your puppy's sort of they're out of that moment, okay? And if they're still a little bit amped up, so they'll be out of the moment, sometimes they'll go get a drink, they'll do something else, okay? If they're still in the moment after that, you can sprinkle a few treats to the side and say find it. So we've done our sit, okay? If you don't have time for handing out 10 treats, you can just do sit and then give them one, and then find it and scatter them to the side. Okay, so that gets the puppy sniffing and thinking, and they'll kind of sniff around for a little while and forget that they were starting to eat you. Okay, the other option is to ask them to sit, give them a treat, and then give them a replacement item. So if they've mouthed you to get your attention, what you're doing is you're replacing getting your attention with sit and looking your direction, and then you're engaging in play. So rather than saying, yep, biting works to get my attention, we want to ask them for something, some functional behavior. Sit is good, and then move on to maybe having a play with a more appropriate item, okay? So if you're not gonna engage with your puppy, you're gonna ask for sit and give a treat and do a scatter feed, or sit and give 10 treats, finish, or sit, okay, here's the toy that you can play with me, okay? And on that note of playing with the toy, it's good to try to get some sits while you're playing with the toy, in between maybe throwing the toy. If you're playing tug, I have a video on giving up the item. You don't have to focus too much on that. You can literally just take one of your food bits and wave it in front of their nose and either ask them to sit, or even just say find it and ask them to find the toy, find the treat, so they let go of the toy, okay? And then when they come back to you, ask them to sit. So we're gonna try to interrupt the biting and bring the arousal down before it goes too crazy. So maybe by now you're thinking, okay, I need to obviously be watching, but you may need to be limiting the time that you play, the duration that you play with puppy. Maybe your puppy can't play for a minute. Maybe they get too bitey. So instead what you're gonna do is play for a shorter time, maybe more frequently, or you're gonna have some sits in between, okay? So just start to think about arousal goes up, emotional arousal, and we wanna bring it down, okay? Now, then there is actually giving your dog a cue. That means you, like the biting is not what you want them to do. Now, a lot of people will use no, or they'll grab their muzzle. But unfortunately what this does is it often adds more emotion to an already emotional moment. And so your puppy gets more emotionally aroused and the biting actually can get worse. Another thing is your puppy may see you as a bit inconsistent and a bit confusing, and so they don't have as good of recall or wanting to come and learn with you. So because we're shaping their brain right now, we really don't need to use no, because they don't know what it means. We think we know what it means, but no doesn't tell them what they should do. What was the moment they were doing the right thing? Okay, so you can, I recommend to use the word ouch as opposed to using the word no, okay? But if you're determined to use no, at least follow protocol for ouch, okay? Now this is one that's generally easy to stage, because if you get on the ground and touch your puppy, they'll usually start mouthing you, okay? Now, what you're gonna do is you're gonna try to do this in when it's controlled. So don't do this once your puppy's past the point of return. You're actually going in this early, kind of where your puppy's still maybe able to think, but still feeling emotional. And so what we're gonna do is we're going to touch puppy, okay, or just interact with them. And then if they put their mouth on you, you're going to say, ouch, okay? It doesn't have to be scary, it just needs to be audible, okay? Ouch. Now, a lot of puppies will stop and either look at you, or they'll pull back, or sometimes they'll lick you. So anything that is not applying pressure, so they maybe stop, they lick, or they pull back, you're going to say yes, yes, yes. And you're going to get a treat out of your pocket, okay? Because you're marking the puppy reacting to ouch. They've gone, oh, okay, this doesn't, oh, I guess something's happened here, okay? So we're not going to yip or growl or anything that dogs would do, but we're just gonna say what a human would say, ouch. And then when they stop for a moment, yes, and give them a treat. Now, I kind of prefer to then maybe transition to something else, or you can go back to stroking puppy, and when they're licking you, and not biting you, make sure you give lots of feedback. Good puppy, but don't stroke harder and get them more excited. Just good puppy, good puppy. Oh, that's good, that's good. Okay. Now, if you say ouch and absolutely nothing happens, or they start biting harder, okay, so it's worth saying it at just an extra level, a little louder, ouch, and see, and then do the steps before. Yes, 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 treat, okay? Now, a lot of people say, well, aren't I rewarding the puppy for biting me? Well, what you're actually rewarding is the moment that the puppy stopped biting you. But there's a lot of value in rather than waiting for more biting, you're actually going to, that's why we give the feedback, good puppy, and keep interacting with them, okay? If food works a little bit more for your puppy, when they, lick you, yes, yes, and you can keep yesing and rewarding, marking and rewarding the licking and the interacting and the not biting, okay? So then if another time they come and you're with them and you're touching them and they're not biting you, yes, and you might choose to food reward it. Because food kind of adds a little bit more excitement, I do tend to do a bit more of just the verbal praising, good puppy, and then of course my attention. So we're using sort of the attention as the reward system rather than the food, okay? But oftentimes that first initial ouch is good to food reward, just to get them to really get that concept, oh, okay, that is something that is rewarded, that releasing, okay, or backing off. If your auditory level you've had to increase, don't get angrier. It's then important to just remove your attention, okay? So if you were on the ground, you just need to stand up, okay? And then you might ask your puppy to sit, or if they are just kind of bumping you and not biting you, you can then give them the attention back. Oh, good puppy, okay? So we're kind of doing a give and take of our attention for when the puppy's not biting. So this is a way to help them realize that their behavior is affecting the outcome, and using food helps to pinpoint the behaviors you like, but so does giving them the attention. But the problem with attention is sometimes it's very emotionally arousing. So you sort of have to kind of play around to figure out which works for your puppy. If you don't have food on you, you're just, oh, hello puppy, ouch. Oh, it's good puppy, because they stop biting you, okay? And alternatively, if they're biting you, just removing their attention the moment they stop, oh, good dog. So make sure you give that attention back the moment they stop. Otherwise, their brain won't register that they did the right thing. You'll kind of miss the teachable moment. So it's a learning curve for everybody, okay? Now there's a game called It's Your Choice, which helps puppies, dogs learn that concept of their behavior affects the outcome, and gets them really thinking. Okay, so follow the link below to go to the It's Your Choice videos. So that's a really excellent way of starting to teach your puppy without any words how to have some impulse control, how to not just go for the hand, okay? So there's another video on that. It's your choice. And so these, biting can be like very situational, very every little situation might be a bit different, but just really try to think about guiding your puppy and showing them the right way to interact rather than focusing on just saying no and not really pinpointing what was the right thing, okay? Previously, I said if you really need to do no, you're gonna treat it like ouch. What I mean by that is if you say no and your puppy stops anything that you said no to, please say yes and give them a treat or throw a couple treats at them if you're too far away. And also think about puppy proofing. So if your puppy goes straight back for the pot plants, then you need to put them away for about 18 months so they can't access that and therefore repeat the behavior, because dogs will become what they practice, okay? So hopefully that gives you something to start with. And there is more that if you do want to do private training with me, I can help pinpoint exactly to your training needs. But yeah, there's more to be said on puppy biting, but this is a great way to start. Okay, talk to you guys next time. Bye.